Hey everyone, Aiden here from Push Square with Liam Croft's review of Silent Hill 2. Does Bloober Team have what it takes to recapture the magic of the original? Well, let's find out in our PS5 review. Silent Hill always has been and forever will be considered one of the greatest horror franchises ever, but ask anyone under the age of 20 which game Pyramid Head comes from and they're more likely to say Dead by Daylight. A few dire side games aside, like PS3's Downpour or the PS Vita's Book of Memories, along with Konami's decision to step away from the video game industry, has seen the IP fall into obscurity. But as Capcom goes from strength to strength with its excellent Resident Evil remakes, Konami finally seems to want to make amends with new installments, and first and foremost, a full remake of what is widely considered the franchise at its absolute peak, Silent Hill 2. Bloober Team of Blair Witch and the Medium fame has been drafted in to help make that project a reality, working in close collaboration with Konami to faithfully bring back this classic. While there have been plenty of doubts over its ability to do so, the Polish developer has well and truly put any concerns to bed. Silent Hill 2 is incredible. The two firms have come together to create a PS5 experience that wholeheartedly honours the PS2 masterpiece while expanding it and implementing new ideas, assets and areas in all of the right ways. What once was roughly a 10-hour game is now double that, with more things to see and do that still stick to the main story and its themes. It's an impressive recreation of Silent Hill that manages to feel both familiar as you walk its same streets 23 years later, but also fresh as unforgettable locations like Toluca Prison and the Labyrinth received significant touch-ups while retaining their scare factor. It's not an exact one-to-one recreation, there have been changes made here, yet the PS5 replacements still feel right and relevant. You'll feel it most in the puzzles, where some have been swapped for completely new ones or updated with different features and mechanics. There's slightly less of an emphasis on solving out-and-out riddles, exchanged for more exploration of the wider environments to find items. While this trade-off may become one of the few topical debates surrounding this release, many of the remake's other additions and updates make for a much better playing game. The camera, for example, has been brought much closer to protagonist James Sunderland with a modern over-the-shoulder perspective to improve immersion. This has aided the combat system which, while retaining its weighty and deliberate roots, feels a lot better, especially with a gun in your hand. Of course, the control system has been overhauled to reflect all of this. Modern button mapping makes interactions a breeze, even in the lovingly archaic looking inventory menu. And that's exactly what Silent Hill 2 on PS5 manages to do so well. It continues to revel in the more classic gameplay styles of old, like delightfully convoluted puzzle solving, whilst also feeling, controlling and looking like any other modern game. From a purely visual perspective, it may not quite compare to Capcom's own remaking efforts, but everything else that Bloober Team and Konami have achieved more than stacks up against Resident Evil 2. One of the things that allowed the PS2 original to sustain its importance for such a long time though is its narrative. The story of James and the trip to find his dead wife in Silent Hill is heralded for its handling of sensitive subjects and themes, and in itself presenting a gripping plot full of intrigue. Bloober Team handles this delicate aspect with respect, as it faithfully restores the plot for the modern era with little in the way of edits or cuts. The main beats all return as you remember them, along with every ending featured in the original game. A handful of entirely new conclusions have also been written into the PS5 remake. All in all, with the source text already there for Bloober Team to recreate, Silent Hill 2 still makes the same impact more than 2 decades later. The intense and suspenseful gameplay loop of item searching and fighting monsters holds up too. Without the need for objective markers or quest logs, you'll feel the natural urge to probe every room making up any given location, whether that's the Woodside Apartments or the final Lakeview Hotel. The classic survival horror loop of solving extravagant puzzles remains incredibly satisfying, combined with tense and heavily weighted combat to make any expedition away from a save point a dangerous one. You see, James isn't a military trained soldier, he's just a regular guy looking for his wife. He's not been trained in the art of steel pipe swings, nor does he feel particularly comfortable with a shotgun in his hands. The game reflects his inexperience with a very deliberate, heavy combat system that prioritizes melee weapons for standard enemies and guns for boss fights. James swings his 2x4 slowly, while reloading and popping off accurate shots takes time. Every action you take during an encounter feels intentional and calculated, because if you miss, there's every chance the monster on the other end will bite back with a killing blow. This goes both ways though. Seeing an enemy drop to the floor so that you can beat it to death after a couple of successful hits is more gratifying when you've earned it. The only other move James has in his repertoire is a very basic dodge, so Bloober Team has successfully emulated the combat mechanics of old while giving them a modern day feel. Maybe you think about when you attack rather than going gun-ho. It's a measured mechanic that heightens satisfaction and relief. Another way that Silent Hill 2 taps into those senses is through the PS5's DualSense controller, with some of the most impressive implementations of haptic feedback in years. Work has been put into simulating a lot of the actions or environments portrayed on your TV screen so you can feel them in your hand. In the dead of night, when the heavens open up, there's rain soaking James to the bone and you'll feel each individual droplet in the pad. As you're exploring Toluca prison, there's a section where an alarm is sounded. Its grinding, unbearable pitch translates its vibrations into the PS5 controller in a way that genuinely makes it unpleasant to hold. The effect makes you want to shut the alarm off as quickly as possible, intensifying the sequence as a whole as you begin to feel it in your very own body. Some of Silent Hill 2's use cases would make Astrobot proud. It's that effective. The transformation of the game's visuals from PS2 to PS5 is another highlight. It doesn't quite compare to top-of-the-line AAA titles, but to see how Bloober Team has faithfully recreated all of Silent Hill 2's iconic locations, cutscenes, and moments for the current generation is truly impressive in itself. With a new soundtrack from returning composer Akira Yamaoka, it is a sensual delight from both a graphical and auditory perspective. The only proper disappointment is some slight visual bugs in the thick fog of Silent Hill, where you can sometimes see the outline of buildings poking through. It looks a little unnatural, particularly when it's difficult to see anything else beyond 5 feet in front of you. There's also a slight fuzziness to character faces when analysed up close and during cutscenes, which look a little strange. You do get used to it, but it can be distracting from time to time. So, Bloober Team has faithfully and respectfully recreated one of the survival horror genre's all-time greats, modernizing Silent Hill 2 in all of the right ways. So much of what made the Konami classic a masterpiece back in 2001 remain here in this PS5 remake 23 years later, with the same unforgettable story, satisfying exploration, and weighty combat. There were concerns in the lead up to release, but Silent Hill 2 speaks for itself, a spectacular experience that once again represents survival horror at its best. We're giving Silent Hill 2 a 9 out of 10. Thank you everyone for checking out our review of Silent Hill 2. Let us know how excited you are to check this one out down in the comments below, and while you're there, remember to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more PlayStation video content. Anyway, I appreciate you as always, and until next time, I've been Aaron, and this has been Push Square.